Hello everyone and welcome back to today's celebration of volunteering Ghost Walk. In this second episode, you'll hear from Tom Finelli giving us the rich history of the South Shields Volunteer Life Brigade, and from City Guides revealing the gory goings-on at Marsden Grotto, and Fiona from Alzheimer's telling us about South Lighthouse.
My name is Tom Finelli. I'm the Honorary Secretary of the South Shields Volunteer Life Brigade, which has existed on this very spot here on the South Pier at South Shields since it was founded on the 31st of January 1866. The brigade, like the Volunteer Life Brigade at Tynemouth, was formed in response to a major shipping disaster which occurred in the mouth of the Tyne, just off the Tynemouth headland. And the Volunteer Life Brigades were formed because the local people were absolutely distressed at the sight of 23 people dying on a shipwreck and no one was able to help them. So the Volunteer Life Brigades were formed to assist the Coast Guard in the use of the rocket rescue apparatus. The South Shields Volunteer Life Brigade became the first such organisation in the world to use the breeches buoy to rescue life from shipwreck, with the wreck of the Tenterden, a schooner from Sunderland, which ran ashore here on the South Pier on the 1st of April 1866, just some 6 weeks after the brigade was formed. That iconic wreck is depicted and remembered in the watch house in a very famous picture called Saved by a local artist, J.T. Watson. And that wreck followed many, many more wrecks thereafter, where hundreds of people have been saved over the years from shipwreck. Today, the Volunteer Life Brigade still continues in the same spirit of volunteer life-saving service, operating as rope rescue, water rescue and search rescue capabilities with the Coast Guard today, doing very much the same thing, except very differently using modern techniques and modern equipment. We no longer deal with shipwrecks, but we have a fantastic record of service stretching back unbroken since 1866, and we're very proud to have a great team of volunteers to do that. One of the most famous shipwrecks associated with the history of the brigade occurred in January 1963, when a Lebanese steamer with a Greek crew on board ran ashore here in the harbour on the Herd Sand next to the Groyne. That led to the rescue of 23 crew and one dog, a small chihuahua called Manuela. The crew were rescued, and that led to a resurgence of interest in the continuation of the Volunteer Life Brigade, which at that time had not taken part in a shipwreck rescue since World War II. That, of course, is one of many dogs that the Volunteer Life Brigade has been involved in rescuing over the years. In more recent times, in the rope rescue and search and rescue work we do, we're frequently called to assist with the recovery of dogs which, because of the poor behaviour of their owners, are allowed to roam loose on the cliff tops, often falling over and getting stranded, and our lads go and rescue them to stop other people getting into difficulties. One time recently there was a young lady and a dog called Paddy the Labrador. Paddy the Labrador sadly went over the cliff, either chasing a frisbee, a seagull or whatever, and when we recovered him, he was found to be very much dead. His very distraught owner asked us could we recover the dog so she could take it home to give her other dog closure, and so that Paddy the Labrador could be buried in the back garden, which we duly did. Some weeks later I received a letter thanking us for our efforts in recovering poor Paddy from his demise, and saying, P.S. my mother and father had the foresight to take out pet insurance. Can you please provide us with a death certificate? Which I duly did. This iconic image, saved by the famous well-known Victorian artist and illustrator J.T. Watson, depicts the very first shipwreck, the wreck of the schooner Tenterden, which occurred on the 1st of April 1866, and it shows the wife of the skipper of that vessel and their child being rescued by the Volunteer Life Brigade. Many, many years later, in the late 1940s, an old lady came into the watch house and pointed to that child figure and said, "That was me." At that time, no one sadly recorded her details, but that story is repeated many times in the history and the anecdotal recollections of many older members of the brigade in those days, and it has been handed down as a story directly linked from the very first days of the brigade right up until today, and it's proudly displayed here in the watch house.
Hello, I'm Anne, a city guide standing in front of the beautiful Marston Rock, which many people come to look at, not to look just at the rock, but to look at the seabirds which are on it. And in the summertime we have kittiwakes. I can hear that they've flown south, but we have lots of seabirds, and many people from all over the country come to look at this beautiful landscape. Well, here we are at Marston Bay. I think I'll take this mask off. Unless you want me to put it back on because it's better. Why Marston Bay? Because there are lots and lots of stories about ghosts in this area. Why? Because these magnificent limestone cliffs have got lots of caves, and behind us we've got the grotto where Jack the Blaster, a lead miner from Durham, blasted the caves to make it into a home, which he did, which then developed into a cafe, and today we've got a fantastic hotel, restaurant, smashing coffee place, a great place to come on such a beautiful sunny day. But I want to tell you about Jack the Gibber. Jack the Gibber, what's a gibber? A gibber is a grass. And Jack the Gibber told the customs men that some goods that were being smuggled when they were coming in, and they were caught. So they knew that he had told the story and told on them. So what they did was, some of the other smugglers, they put him in a cave that had a shaft up to the top, about 120 feet, because some of these caves had shafts that went up where they could take the smuggled goods from, and they put him in a barrel, and they hoisted the barrel halfway up the shaft. Every now and again, they lowered the barrel and gave him a little drink of water or a tiny bit of bread. And he lived for 60 days. 60 days it took him to die in this barrel. But that was his just reward, apparently, for telling on the smugglers of South Shields. So, the story goes that if you walk along this beach sometimes, you can hear a moan, and it's supposed to be the ghost of Jack the Gibber.
Hello, I'm Fiona Swindell. I work at the Alzheimer's Society, and I'd like to welcome you this evening to South Lighthouse, which is behind us. So this lighthouse was built in 1871 at a cost of £8,000, which must have been quite a lot of money then. It was ahead of its time, really unusual technology at the time, the first ever lighthouse to have its lights, the candles, powered by electricity. So it was a marvel in its day. The lighthouse itself was decommissioned in 1988 after 117 years of saving ships from crashing into the rocks below here at Whitburn. So it's saved many a seafarer in its time. It was then taken on by the National Trust. It's a Grade 2 listed building, and they've kept it up to tip-top condition and opened it to the public. But you may be asking, what about the lighthouse ghosts? Souter has had many incidents of paranormal activity that people have reported, and it's actually been featured on a TV programme. So you may have seen Most Haunted They did an investigation into the ghostly goings-on. So many people claim to feel cool spots around the lighthouse and its buildings. There is a corridor leading to the kitchen which smells of cigar smoke. So you can imagine the person who loved his cigars is haunting the lighthouse even now and wafting his ghostly cigar smoke around when people visit. It's also believed that Isabel Darling is haunting Suter too. She's the niece of Grace Darling, who famously saved so many sailors from being wrecked off the Northumberland coast at Bramburgh. So we do know that in fact Grace Darling's nephew, Robert Darling, worked at the lighthouse as a lighthouse keeper for 34 years. So it could very well be Isabella who is haunting the lighthouse to this day and wafting cool air at people who visit. So it's easy to imagine on a foggy evening when the mist is wafting in from the sea, when you hear the mournful cry blaring out of the foghorn, that there could be those people who lived in the lighthouse, who worked in the lighthouse but couldn't leave, are waiting to scare unsuspecting visitors, and ghostly goings on could be happening at any point on those sorts of evenings if you just happen to be walking past. So unfortunately, because of COVID-19, Suter Lighthouse isn't open to the public for visitors to climb up to the top of the lighthouse or see any of the amazing technology. But you can, if you come for a walk along the cliffs, if you arrive before the cafe closes at 5 o'clock, you'll be able to get a welcome warm beverage, maybe a cup of tea and something nice to eat.
And there's the end of episode 2. If you've enjoyed today's video, be sure to check out the final episode, episode 3. We'll see you in the next video.